The story begins at the border of the Cashel territory, a land ravaged by a severe drought that plunged everyone into despair, alive, and why they still try to flee, simply because it hasn't rained for a while. Then he asks why they are so ungrateful and insolent. A woman among. It must be difficult for someone like him to distinguish between superhuman physical strength and magic. Still intrigued, Sebek asks the man his name and classification as a herald. The stranger remains silent for a few moments, then insists, stating that he already revealed who he is and where he comes from. The man ironically asks if Sebek really said that, since he didn't hear it. Finally, he introduces himself. My name is Asadin, of the 108 spirits, the Emperor's herald. Sebek observes that the position of the 108 spirits is the lowest, but the movement demonstrated by Asadin proves that he is far from weak. Alright, Asadin takes the opportunity to remind Sebek that he had promised to tell what happened there. After a brief silence, both observe the territory from above. High above, the herald comments that the story really is impressive. Soon, a different voice is heard announcing that the contract has been concluded. Sebek senses something strange in the air and spots a bird flying overhead. The bird lands on Asadin's shoulder and reports that he has earned free coins. Because the applicant died, surprised to hear the owl speak, Sebek hears it say that it is time to move on, to fulfill another mission, and that there is no time to rest. The bird instructs Asadin to continue onward. He clicks his tongue and starts to walk, but the swordsman asks him to wait, questioning whether he will actually leave after receiving his reward for the death of the requester. Asadin, with a curious tone, asks if Sebek wants the request to be. Tearfully, she hugs her son and begs for forgiveness, pleading that if they are going to execute her, they at least spare her son's life. A soldier, however, orders her to leave, fulfilled, finding it strange since he believes that his master will suffer the consequences. Firmly, Sebek responds that this will not happen and calls out to the herald, a soulless being. The swordsman draws his sword, pointing it at Asadin, and declares that he will defeat him right then and there. Asadin, with an ironic smile, comments. It's amusing to see him try to stop him with a mere sword. He points out that Sebek remained silent in the face of so many injustices, and that even he finds that regrettable. These words begin to irritate Sebek, but soon the irritation escalates into an uncontrollable fury. The herald then asks if the swordsman's anger is directed at him, or at himself, for turning his back after witnessing the atrocities that were committed. Outraged, Sebek demands to know what Asadin truly knows about all of this. Asadin calmly asks if Sebek is familiar with the constellations in the first night sky, and how each one holds a different meaning. Sebek, bewildered, asks why Asadin is talking about this, questioning his intention. Asadin explains that humans can see the same thing, but their perceptions can be completely different. To some, a constellation may represent the protagonist of a myth, while to others it may be just a faint, pale light in the darkness. In the same way, the vision of the devastating events may seem somewhat different to Sebek compared to the other soldiers. While touching John's corpse, Sebek strikes her in the back with a spear, nearly knocking her down. The blow, instead of simply subduing her, splatters blood all over the child. Lowers his sword, saying that the situation is different because he was not able to do anything, and his eyes are full of regret. He looks at his sword and then his reflection, stating that as a knight of the king's church, he should revere those who carry the blood of the divine kings. Asadin says that if Sebek felt pity for the girl, then he does not wish to fight him. He then cuts John's ropes and declares that his sword is not his enemy. Sebek seems to be struggling with conflicting emotions, while Asadin also picks up Sophia's corpse, asking if he has a shovel. Sebek, intrigued, a moment and asks why he needs it and if he intends to bury those people, calling it madness. Asadin replies that he will hold a funeral for them. Sebek thinks for a moment and says that Clay wants the bodies left hanging in the trees to send a message and prevent others from repeating their actions. Burying the bodies would be like directly defying him. Asadin then remarks that if Sebek doesn't have a shovel, he can't be helped, and begins to dig with his bare hands. Sebek, after a moment of hesitation, grips his sword even tighter and plunges it into the ground. Asadin watches in surprise as Sebek also starts digging, and together, they prepare individual graves for Sophia and John. After some time, they both complete the task, even placing small crosses on the grave markers. During this moment, the herald offers a prayer, asking the archangel of wisdom, courage, and mercy to watch over their Tine. As the woman falls to the ground, the child starts crawling, trying to get away from the lifeless body. Clay, observing the scene, questions the Mason souls. Intrigued, Sebsi asks why someone from the Herald clan would use a prayer from the Order of Saviors. With a nonchalant gesture, the archer, he explains that he simply appreciates their ideology. The swordsman comments that abandoning the destiny of his clan of origin to serve the faith is unwise, considered heretical. In response, the other states that if he doesn't defend what he believes is right, then his birth will have been meaningless. Curious, Sebsi asks what exactly he finds so fascinating about the Order of Saviors. As Asadin answers, he turns, pulling something from his waist and, starting to adjust it. It is revealed to be a bow, which he had been using as a belt, and is now preparing to use. He points it in the direction from where an individual approaches, believing it is the one he serves. Concerned, Sebsi looks in the same direction, and soon recognizes Clay and his soldier, Clay, with a smile. He sarcastically asks Sebski if he liked the peasant girl so much, provoking her by saying that she should have told him sooner. Clay, laughing, concedes that for peasant, she really was good, but nothing more than that. Sebs comments that he should have already figured Clay would take care of the girl, noting that he would face about 20 soldiers and would have no chance of victory. The commander of the soldiers, still mocking, asks, "Who is the bastard standing next to Sebsk?" While the archer begins to draw his bow, the string is released, and the arrow flies straight through the ranks, striking a man in the rear, soldier about such carelessness, criticizing him for not making the situation more entertaining. The soldier, embarrassed, apologizes for his lack of creativity, impacting him. Filled with agony, he trembles and clutches his head in his hands as chaos breaks loose. Sebsi observes the precision of the shot, realizing that the archer struck a man on the opposite side of the formation. Without hesitation, he knocks another arrow and fires again, targeting the soldiers in the first line. The men attempt to raise their shields to defend against the attack, but one of them feels a sharp pain in his groin as he is struck. The soldier drops his shield, which shatters upon hitting the ground, and immediately collapses to his knees, bleeding profusely. The arrow had pierced his femoral artery, leaving him in critical condition. The soldiers begin to panic, and Sebs comments that the arrow seemed to curve like a snake as it passed through the shield. In the midst of the confusion, the archer finally answers the question posed earlier. He explains that what he appreciates about the Order of Saviors is the idea that a person's worth is determined not by their birth, but by their beliefs and actions. Asadin asserts that someone with the blood of the Divine King, who commits atrocities against their own people, cannot be considered noble. Irritated, Clay watches as the archer prepares another arrow, remarking that he shouldn't even be considered human. Then, he shouts loudly, questioning what a mere peasant could possibly know. Unfazed, the archer doesn't react to Clay's outburst, who orders Sebsi to kill that bastard immediately. Without any hesitation, Sebsi leaps into the air and, looking upwards, observes the archer ascending, and asks what he could do to entertain him better. In response, Clay smiles maliciously. The situation becomes even more cruel when the soldiers, illuminated by the moonlight, he calmly prepares his bow as the terrified soldiers wonder if they will be next. An arrow is shot, hitting a man directly in the eye. Quickly, 2 more soldiers are positioned to take a precise double shot. Both arrows are fired, and the archer begins to descend towards the ground once more. The stunned soldiers rush to intercept his landing, but the warrior lands on their spears, using them as leverage to stand. He fires 3 arrows simultaneously, taking down 3 more enemies. One of them passes so close to Clay that it grazes his face. Startled, Clay realizes that, although many have been hit, only the man wounded in his private parts has lost his life. He now understands that the archer is only incapacitating the soldiers, allowing them to survive. A ghostly aura is unleashed, enveloping the battlefield as cover to continue firing and neutralizing the adversaries. He suddenly appears behind Clay, identifying himself as a herald. The enemy leader, overcome with terror, loses control as the soldiers around him panic. Realizing his ruthless nature, Clay turns at the sound of the voice behind him, but when the archer tries to grab more arrows, he discovers that he has already run out. Seizing the opportunity, Clay tries to attack him, but is struck directly in the face. Calmly, the archer disassembles his bow and stows it away again. They begin to hang the villagers, turning their suffering into a macabre spectacle for all to see. To make matters worse, the villagers are forced to on his waist, while Clay screams in pain from the wound to his eye. One of the soldiers attempts to attack him from behind, but the blow is deflected. He responds by punching the aggressor in the face, seizing his sword, explaining that he used the arrows to thin out the enemy ranks and challenges the soldiers to face him if they possess sufficient courage. Shortly thereafter, he plunges the sword into the ground near one of the men, castrating him with the strike, resulting in amazement among the others. Turning towards the soldiers, it becomes evident just how unpredictable and dangerous he truly is. The owl observes the scene as the battlefield becomes saturated with blood. Slowly advancing toward Clay, he declares that he hasn't made someone like Clay wait too long, especially considering Clay has always caused pain to others. He clarifies that what has transpired there is far from an adequate punishment. Abruptly, the enemy unleashes a spell, emitting a light. Intense yellow light blinds everyone present. One of the soldiers comments that he is losing his vision, his eyes showing the effects of the spell. Without, however, the archer seems immune to the magic. Clay, in a provocative tone, declares that his noble blood is incomparable to that of his opponent. In response, the blade is swung forward, and Clay's blood flies through the air. Realizing what has happened, Clay screams, noticing that he has also been castrated, while the blood flows down his clothes. Desperate, he begins to cry, asking what just occurred. The archer, laughing, asks if he has mental problems, since he should bear the weight of their own loved ones. If they fail, they will perish alongside them. The setting is dark and perverse, reflecting the extreme cruelty of the Marquis' son. Clearly understand the situation. Seizing the moment, he grabs Clay by the hair, as the distressed Clay offers him money, women, and anything else. Whatever he wants. But the answer is direct, because the Sanctity Exterminator knows the heralds well and refuses to be convinced. A desperate Clay cries out for Sebsi, who embarrassedly says that he cannot help. Still, the nobleman tries to appeal to his prestigious position, but the effort is in vain. After some thought, the archer declares that he will continue living, which confuses his enemy. He then raises his blade and advances toward Clay's only remaining eye. The blow leaves him blind, and he faints from the unbearable pain. Calmly, the archer declares that, even though there is no contracting party, he believes that he has fulfilled the Emperor's law. Sebsi then begins to unsheath his sword. He, a knight of the king's church, and cannot allow someone who, he speaks of the Emperor's law, living regardless of whether one has committed a righteous act or not. Masked, however, he lowers his sword and declares that he is not like the other knights of the king's church. Sebsi shouts, asking if Asadin is insulting him. He responds that he is not insulting him, but praising him, because the other knights of the king's church are nothing more than scoundrels who were exiled from their homes because of inheritance. Before Sebs can reply, Asadin continues, asking him if he will be able to follow him, all while laughing. Sebsi, curious, asks what he means, but Asadin has already of the Marquis. One of the soldiers calls out to the young master, who turns to listen to what he has to say. The soldier explains that the man will bleed to disappeared with his ghostly aura, saying that if fate allows, they will meet again. When the aura dissipates, Sebski sees no sign of Asadin lies alone, fallen on the ground, and Sebska reflects that no one has been able to kill Asadin, the herald. On the contrary, they have only suffered losses. Permanent. He admits that what Asadin said about the knights was correct, and that it applies to him as well. Sebsi smiles slightly, feeling a weight dissipating from his chest, because at least Sophia and John have been properly avenged. The scene then changes to a group of people bowing before their lord, begging to be exempted from taxes. They explain that everyone is fleeing the village, leaving behind an abandoned place. Those who remained are dying of hunger and returning as the living dead, wandering the streets. The village is infested with thieves and monsters, and no one is in a condition to pay the taxes. Due to the dire situation, the Lord pauses, appearing irritated, before calling them shameless. Then, nothing happens. Except Clay's father, Margrave Sell, comments that at this rate, even the civilians will soon start begging for food. Now fearful, they realize that he is right. The man leading the group looks at him pleadingly, saying that they are at their breaking point. Cashel responds that nothing will change the humble blood that runs through their veins, and that, if they wish, he can offer them relief. Surprised, they ask if he will really do that, and he smiles, affirming, yes, as long as death before they can do anything else, and it would be best to take advantage of him while he's still alive. The woman, overcome by desperation, cries while holding. They don't fail to fulfill his request. Everyone in the room will be hanged. The question of whether they wish to accept remains unanswered as the group stays in silence. Shocked, they exchange glances, unsure how to react. Cashel begins to conjure some kind of magic with his hand, telling them not to be afraid. He assures them that what they are asking for is merely a single page. Regarding the nature of the grimoire he holds, the leader explains that they are ignorant when it comes to magic, and they don't know how to locate it. Cashel laughs, stating that even fools like them will be able to find the grimoire if they simply desire it. He says that the grimoire will answer their call and reveal itself. If they manage to bring back a page from the grimoire, he will exempt the village from taxes for 3 years and provide them with 50 bushels of wheat, barley, and oats. The civilians are surprised by the proposal. One of the men asks for at least the name of the grimoire so that they can search for it. He clenches his fists, causing the magic to dissipate, and glares at them with a menacing expression, revealing that the grimoire is a copy of the Divine King's book. Citizens, still in shock, retreat as Cashel remains seated on his throne. A snake slithers from behind the curtains and moves to his side. When he looks down and sees the snake transforming into an imposing woman who tells him that mentioning the book's name was a grave mistake, Cashel calls her absurd, stating that he knows her group is searching for the grimoire and that, regardless, rumors about it will soon spread throughout the. Due to the water scarcity, the well had run dry, and one of the inhabitants gazed at the fields with a look of terror in his eyes. Her husband, shaking and pleading for them to stop the torture. In a desperate act, she runs towards one of the soldiers, trying to convince him with her pleas. The soldier, without continent. Therefore, it would be more intelligent to use the poor to find a page for the group. He asks what the woman wants by revealing her true form. The answer arrives with the revelation that he has come to tell the truth, disclosing that his son was a victim of all this before he can finish speaking. Cell interrupts, saying that Clay's forces would fall easily, especially since the woman is seen to be with them. Then, he reveals that the true opponent was actually a member of the Herald clan. Cashel's eyes light up, and he asks firmly if she is certain. Confirmation comes, with the explanation of that they are after the book of the Divine King, because they will also need it to free themselves from the curse of their duty. Cashel asks if his son is dead, and the woman replies that he is not, but that he has lost the vision in both eyes and has been castrated. Visibly irritated, Cashel listens to her question, and she questions him as to what he will do. He orders him to send soldiers to his neighborhood to kill the herald who has been dispatched. The woman replies that she understands and will contact him. Commander Cashel grabs his hand, telling him that he should ask someone else to do it, and that if his son has been castrated, he can simply just do it. Another as he pulls her into his lap. She starts to smile, but this could get weird. I'll demonstrate in the rest of the video. Just kidding. We didn't see anything at all. Ways, as the scene jumps to another location in Asadin territory. He's standing there, showing that he has no water, and sighs, saying that this is bad, and that he will die this way. P-Dad slaps her, and orders her to get out of the way. The woman, tears streaming down her face, clutches her injured face and calls out to her husband, who is already tied with ropes to the same tree as the others, of thirst. He asks the buo why she had to make such a spectacle, saying that he would have gotten water in 2 days, and calling her stupid. The buo questions whether he dares to. Speaking so impertinently to Emperor Asadin, he looks at the owl with a confused expression before launching into an entire wall of text to explain how the Harel came to be. He explains that this happened because the emperor died without a succession plan, which cursed all the Harel. He continues to bombard the owl with facts and logic, asking why he had to make such a spectacle. He mentions that he was forced to drop everything he was doing to rush over there as fast as possible. Because of that, he's now on the verge of dying of thirst, while still being hungry. He doesn't even think he'll be able to digest anything, since he's so parched. The owl apologizes, saying that his servant will arrive soon. He senses something, and wonders what's happening, as Asadin reaches for his sword. Asadin. He wonders if it's a ghost as he watches a group materialize before him, and it turns out to be none other than Sophia and the others who were left hanging in the trees. Bowing respectfully before him, Asadin greets him, explaining that the land possesses neither the light of the king's virtue nor the blessing of the archangels. So, therefore, it is unwise to remain there for very long. He states that he has already atoned for their grievances, and that they should depart for the afterlife. Sophia then points behind. Eli. Turning around, Asadin notices a well, and asks if they are attempting to offer him water, telling them that they don't need to, and that they are free to go. As the scene unfolds, the Marquis' son laughs, remarking that the whole thing is truly magnificent. Rest. He then peers into the well and starts pulling up the bucket, exclaiming that he can't wait to have a drink of water. However, as it reaches the top, surprised, he asks what it is while looking at a page about the sand. We learn more about the Herald clan. who were originally a race known as Aragaza. They crossed a massive typhoon from another continent and landed on the Byblos continent. The 8 divine kings of the Yagas family. Yagas ruled the Byblos continent and occupied 8 thrones spread across the earth. However, during that era, a single person monopolized each one of these thrones, while the other 7 holy kings, who were brothers, were all subjugated by the emperor of the Yaslat family. We see him sitting on his throne. We learn that Emperor Yaslat wanted to get rid of all remnants of the deceased holy kings. Meanwhile, the outsiders, the Aragaza, who eventually became the Harel, needed land to settle on, and the emperor granted them the grimoire in exchange for the Song of the Yellow Bird. A spirit called the Voice of the Emperor was bestowed upon them. The outsiders signed a contract with the emperor and became Harel. With this, the hands of the Aragaza were mercilessly stained with the blood of the gods, and they became the emperor's sword and executioners. They personally executed the corrupt nobles who defied imperial law, and they prospered. It was the most horrible sin that the citizens of Byblos. While mocking them, the woman continues to hold her husband, trying to support him amidst her tears. The young master, with an ironic tone, praises her efforts and says, could commit, as they believed in the afterlife and this cycle of eternal life. After some time, the emperor died, and the empire was divided into 8 independent kingdoms. Once again, the Aragaza family was despised by everyone in Byblos, and the heralds fell from grace, branded as soulless because they had sold their spirit for that pouch. Despite this, they encountered an unforeseen problem. The contract with the emperor remained in effect even after his death. The heralds were obligated to continue serving the emperor, as the contract was eternal. All heralds were bound to this fate. Asadin picks up the page, stating that it is a page from the Divine King's book, sensing the emperor's power emanating from it. He then takes Safi and John aside, telling them to rest in peace. While analyzing the page, Asadin wonders if this means that by collecting these pages, he will be able to escape his cursed duty. The owl responds, it's rude to call it a curse, as it's an honorable contractual job. Asadin remarks that he can't believe he's fallen into its clutches, and that destiny isn't a game. Then the bird asks if he's unhappy, since this is something all heralds desire. The heralds have 2 hands, and that destiny is not a game. Then the bird asks if he isn't happy, because this is something all the herald desire. The herald have 2 objectives. 1. To fulfill their service duties and collect 100,000 gold coins. Or 2. To acquire the Book of the Divine King. If they succeed, any of these goals will allow them to escape the curse of duty. Asadin claims this is part of his objective, but he is concerned about the spread of this, that she is doing a great job. He even adds that she must continue supporting her husband, because without support, the wound will reopen, and he will end up dying. Knowledge throughout the world. The reason the Divine King's book was destroyed in the first place was by his father, as he continued walking through the process. In the desert, we see someone watching from a distance. It appears to be a blonde woman. She tells another person that it is him, that he is the son of the worst traitor in the Tan, ensuring that he is cursed. The man replies that he doesn't know if he is cursed, but he knows for sure that Asadin can't use magic. However, the woman comments, claiming he's cursed. The man replies that he doesn't know if he's cursed, but he knows for sure that Asadin can't use magic. But the woman comments, who has heard that he wet the bed until he was 8, and that he can't even tie a bowstring. He doubts that Asadin will ever be able to fulfill his duty to Herald. The man calls her by name, and we discover that the woman's name is Miriam. The man tells her that they should go back, as there's no need for them to. She works for a lower-ranking herald, and as a relative of the contractor, Midian draws an arrow, stating that she wants to test his abilities. But the man accompanying her tells her that they are not allowed to attack a herald. She questions why it matters, arguing that if she wins, she will take his place, so they absolutely cannot lose. But it will be a problem if he dies, so he decides to remove the arrowhead. The man then tells him that he is still a student from one of the ancient houses, and that there are always wildcards in every situation. She retorts that it doesn't matter. No matter how amazing a Casas is, an idiot Casas will always be an idiot, even. We see the woman trembling as she supports her husband's body, struggling to keep him stable. Just then, a male voice interrupts. If he trains for 10 or even 100 years, Midian simply hates the fact that the son of a traitor is a herald, and even worse, that he is unable to use magic, occupying a space that competent people like her could have taken advantage of. Then, she shoots an arrow from her position, sending it flying straight towards Asadin Midian's back. Immediately, she hides behind a rock, wondering if she managed to hit him or not. Hidden, she observes from above, only to be struck directly in the forehead with a rock. As Asadin jumps, he begins to crouch down while looking at her, questioning if she was the one who shot the arrow. We see that he caught it and trapped it inside his quiver. Miriam tells him that it was a greeting, but wonders when he arrived, since he couldn't feel her presence at all. Then, she realizes where he trapped the arrow, exclaiming that it's absolutely crazy. Asadin asks their names and Midian introduces herself, stating that she is from Letterer's lineage. We finally learn the boy's name is Ismail. He explains that they are assistants and have come to help him. Asadin questions whether that is really the truth and drops his arrow, commenting that it doesn't seem like help at all. Midian points out that his quiver looked empty, so she simply wanted to give him arrows, assuring him that it would be beneficial. She mentions that it seems she applied to be his assistant because she was bored in the Holy Land, and tells them to go back home, calling them children. Midian begins to get irritated, insisting that she is certain she told him that she is from the asking the young master to stop treating the divine king's blood with such irreverence. Turning to identify the source of the voice, he sees a letterer's lineage, to which he responds that lineages hold no meaning for the Harel, and if she came to work for him, she is now his subordinate. But he still shot arrows at him. Perhaps he wants to learn what happens when you do that outside the Holy Land. She says it's very different from the rumors. Asking if he really is the same person that others openly mocked and humiliated, Asadin tells him to apologize for his rudeness, and says that if she wants something from him, she must show respect, whether as a member of the Aragaza or as their enemy, asking her which it will be, as he grits his teeth in frustration. But putting his pride aside for a moment, Midian says that he is sorry for his rudeness, and lowers his head. Asadin says that he accepts his apology, but that he should never shoot anyone with his arrows from now on, unless he intends to kill them, since weapons are not toys outside of Holy Land. She answers in the affirmative, while Asadin turns around and tells them that he won't speak ill of them, so they are free to return to Earth, Santa, since he doesn't require any assistance. Then he realizes he could use this opportunity to his advantage, and asks if they happen to have any water. However, Miriam sets aside her pride, though only for a moment, before shouting and challenging Olo to a duel. Ismail tries to stop her, telling her that he is truly very dangerous. She retorts that he might be a bit different from what the rumors suggest, acknowledging that he is indeed strong and intelligent, but she would be a complete coward if she didn't. Gentleman approaching, who we discover is named Seb C. He positions himself directly in front of the young master, revealing himself to actually be his sword instructor from challenge him simply because he is strong. She then formally issues a challenge for his position as herald, all while looking down at him. Ishmael begins to crying, saying that he has now done it. Asadin says it's pretty crazy to hear that, and that Ariel has been a bad influence on these kids. He affirms that if she wins, she will take his position, but he wonders if she has any idea what will happen if he wins. She replies that, of course, everything that is his, including his life, will be his, and that she is prepared. Asadin says that although Ariel is a problem, it is an even bigger problem that she is underestimating him. He warns Miriam to give up before it's too late, since Ariel is the only one who can defeat a herald. He himself is aware that he does not have the best reputation, but claims that he did not obtain this position by chance. Miriam then turns around and starts walking away. Ismail wonders what she is doing, so, after a moment, she announces that they are now 100 steps away from each other and challenges him again. The owl then declares that the duel is valid and that Asadin must accept the challenge. They are both surprised to hear the Emperor's voice. Asadin asks if he is serious about this. Ismail is terrified and explains that the Emperor's voice is the spirit sent to each herald. Now, with the Emperor's voice as a witness, rejecting the challenge is impossible, and that is not good at all. Midian tells him to stop worrying, because all he needs to do is win. After a while, we see them handing out water as aid, and Asadin starts drinking it all down. The confrontation. Sebsi questions whether it is truly necessary to go to such extremes to punish people, arguing that as someone who inherited while they get quite dirty in the process. Ismail, looking somewhat worried, wonders what is happening with the situation. He says that he used a proper archery technique for the battlefield, sacrificing accuracy for projectile speed. It was definitely an extreme application of the Aragaza technique, as he launched a quantity of stones at Midian. She reacted correctly by raising a magical barrier that deflected the stones, but that wasn't enough, since he prepared even more stones. These curved like snakes, as he had demonstrated before. His skill with the bow is truly impressive. Midian did the best she could, blocking what she could. We see one of the stones graze her head, nearly knocking her over. Ishmael comments that he thought he couldn't use magic, but he used the beauty of nature. Yellow Heron is wondering how he's just sitting there, taking all of that in. Ishmael tells him not to mention it, which only gets worse, as we see that Miriam is out of breath. A surprise attack comes from the sky, which she avoids, but she runs forward, saying she now knows where his position is. She looks at a rock, and sure enough, Asadin comes out from behind it. Miriam says that her prediction was perfect, and that she has now caught him, swinging his blade forward, cutting him in half, but that's nothing more than some of his mist, as we watch his form dissipate. Miriam is confused, while Ismail shouts, telling her to turn around. She does so, raising another magic circle, but Asadin pushes her hand away and grabs it. Blood of a divine king, the young master should at least act with more dignity. Have some dignity, the young master retorts, adding that his honor, withdrawing his fist. He says that this is the end. We see her worried expression as she is sent flying towards a nearby rock. Ismail seems irritated, and he starts shouting her name, saying he can't believe that someone with the blood of a traitor would strike a son of the noble lineage. He rushes toward her, exclaiming that this is unforgivable, questioning how someone so inferior could do such a thing. But the owl interjects, declaring that the duel is now over. The owl declares that Midian challenged his position, and therefore his fate now rests in his hands. Ishmael, because of his interference in the duel, must also become property of the herald, along with Midian. With a look of rage and humiliation, he reaches to his waist, seizes a dagger, and immediately attempts to stab himself in the throat, but Asadin throws a stone, knocking the dagger from his grasp. After the dagger clatters to the ground, Asadin says he knew Ishmael would try it. Some stupid thing happens, and she falls to her knees, feeling desperate. Asadin says that she doesn't even have the right to die now. Having lost the duel, all she can do is die. When he dies, or whenever he wants her to, asking her if she really challenged him to a duel, without knowing something like that. Of course, she says yes, which only makes her seem irritating, since she's a loser now. Asadin, in his heart, thinks that she is certainly an interesting girl, and at least he throws the bag of water back to Ismail, saying that he presumes that was enough to teach them a lesson, and that he will free them both now. They are completely cracked and barren. The fields made agriculture impossible. Not only humans, but even the animals were succumbing to dehydration. Will remain intact as long as no one knows what is happening there. He claims the citizens are foolish for trying to escape simply because it hasn't rained. Confused, asking if he is serious. He replies that he just wants to pretend that the duel never happened, since it would be bad for them if this were to happen. On the record, they both sit there, realizing he's right, but neither of them say a word. Then, Asadin leaves, making his way back through the desert, but, of course, they still follow him. He reminds them that he already told them he doesn't need slaves, and that he gave them their freedom so they could return to the Holy Land. Midian points out that he just obtained a young, beautiful, and talented girl as a slave, but he's still going to let her go, asking if he's crazy. Ishmael shudders, saying that this is seriously embarrassing. Asadin replies that he doesn't know about the beautiful part, but if she were as talented as Ariel, he never would have lost. There are many men who prefer younger girls, as many cultures have customs of early marriage. Although he isn't that type of person, it would be better to think before proposing a duel next time. It would be best if he never challenged anyone to a duel again, and if there is someone he wants to fight, he should just assassinate them. Ismail comments that he's talking a lot more than expected, but it doesn't seem like he's saying everything he's thinking, that with genuine concern in his voice. Then he turns around, realizing that Midian is trembling, and we see her blushing, saying that this is a new experience for her. Ismail is just wondering what the hell is going on now. We see information about the service contract between the Emperor and the Aragaza clan, where recently, he then questions Sebsi about his intentions, and whether he will be the one responsible for revealing the information. He comments with a sarcastic tone, provides the other with what they need, and any traitor will face a horrible death. This contract was once a symbol of loyalty and a mark of honor, but after the Emperor's death, it turned into a terrible curse, as we already know. Even in death, they are still compelled to abide by it. Contract, which appeared to be a never-ending cycle of servitude for the clan. Finally, signs of this cycle breaking began to emerge when the Herald clan intervened in the Terrar Kingdom's War of Succession. The Aragaza secured victory in the Succession War and obtained a copy of the king's book, Divine. However, a notorious traitor named Acre stole the book and fled. We see some men yelling at him from the top of a cliff, telling him to return what he stole, or they would curse him. They demanded he hand over his copy of the book, or face torture, threatening him. With everything they could imagine, their hope was shattered and vanished when Acre scattered the book deep within the Cordillera Mountains. Thus, Acre became the first person to die from the contract's curse. Because of this curse, she gave birth to twins within a single male body. Now, the question arises, how was this possible? These twins were Asadin and Ariel. Ironically, Ariel became the strongest herald in the clan's history, while Asadin was considered a fool. Midian simply wonders who spread such a stupid rumor, because he is nothing like what people say, that there is no way a knight recognized by the king's church would dare to oppose someone with divine blood. Sebsi calmly responds, stating, Asadin tells them that he had already mentioned he has no intention of leading them, so he asks them to stop following him, but Midian refuses. They are following him because they have something to deliver, a letter from the regional head of Salasa. With that said, he remarks that he doesn't like her very much, and wonders why. What it could be about. He decides to ignore half of the letter, as it's just insults, but it mentions that copies of the book have recently surfaced and that he needs to retrieve them, as it will affect his performance evaluation. And, judging by what's written, the other generals must be aware of this copy. Asadin wonders if that's true and asks if they knew about the copies of the book, to which they both reply, yes. Midian says she knows her father betrayed the clan, and before she can finish the sentence, Ismail shouts and kicks her leg, telling her to be quiet. She asks him why, but he simply looks at her and says he doesn't really care, which only confirms that he didn't know. For now, he'll have to go to Salsa to find himself. She speaks with the regional manager and thanks them for delivering the letter. Miriam says they're going to the same place, so they can just follow him and tell him too. She asks what's been happening in the clan. He replies that he doesn't own the road, so they're free to do as they please. As they walk, she runs, quickly, happily, while Ismail sighs with relief. Sometime later, they finally reach the edge of the desert and are about to enter an area of, simply that the truth cannot be hidden forever. The young master sighs, but his expression reveals increasing irritation. A soldier suggests, grasslands. Now they also have mounts. While Asadin sleeps, he wakes up and stretches for a long time after his nap, telling the other two that they also continue walking with their new mounts, and he tells them there's a spring up ahead. They're both still sleepy, but for the first time, in a long time, they see water and begin to fill their canteens. As Asadin sets down that huge bag, someone yells at them, demanding to know who gave them permission to take water from their spring. Asadin says he has no intention of fighting and asks what they want. The man replies that he wants them all, smiling maliciously. Asadin just wants to confirm, asking if there's no room for negotiations. However, the man replies that he certainly talks too much for a grown man and asks what his problem is with the mask, implying he looks like a clown. The leader then orders. His men were ordered to capture the girl and kill the other two. Naturally, they move away from the scene, and judging by their postures, it appears they were knocked unconscious. The others begin to bow and apologize, insisting that they are innocent people. Ismail replies that he thought they were bandits. They explain that just recently, they were recruited because Marquis sells children are enlisting people to find a book. Everyone wonders how they are supposed to find something like that, and as a result, they are wandering aimlessly purely due to bad luck. One of them corrects himself, saying that it is actually very fortunate to encounter someone so, that perhaps they should simply kill Sebsi, but the young master requests a whip instead. Immediately, the whip is handed over, and he uses it to groundcheck, noble as they are. Miriam questions if they might just be thieves fabricating excuses. Asadin says he doubts it, because this is not a road where it is common for Meridian merchants and travelers to add that, in that case, they will have to kill them silently, but Asadin says that he does not kill without a reason. He is surprised, and Ismail comments that it is fair to kill them. Even if they were truly good people, there is a possibility that they would expose them if they were allowed to live. Without, however, the other man says that doesn't mean he should kill them simply for his own comfort, and that all people deserve a second chance. One of the would-be bandits begins to say that he is right, and that people's lives are important, expressing that he expected that from someone so noble. The leader begins to laugh, saying that he is the best, and assuring him that a great fortune will fall upon him and his family because of his mercy. The masked man then, he tells him to shut up. Ishmael reflects on how he's seen people refuse to kill, but he didn't expect to see someone from the Herald clan acting this way. Asadin punches the man directly in the face, just like he did with the others, and we see the men explode. He comments that it was a good hit, and that he could feel how they were crushed. He then warns them not to move too much, because one wrong move could cause not only an eye to burst, but probably their brain as well. They point out that he promised to let them live, but Asadin retorts that this times is times their life, even though he inflicted permanent damage on them. Begin whipping the woman who is holding her husband. Sebsi watches the scene in shock, unable to act, and only helplessly watches as the woman is, so that they can't harm others. He'll make sure they don't regret it immediately. They wonder what the hell they just heard, but Midian and Ishmael, they just stand there, commenting that the situation isn't that bad yet. As everyone watches, some time passes before the guy starts running, only to end up being crushed. 3 of his nuts. And as for the others, one of the nut crusher's victims says that if he ever finds him again, he'll make sure he pays for it. But then we see a giant, thick hand reaching forward and placing its palm on the guy's head, only to be snatched away by a giant creature, similar to a troll. They turn around in horror as the guy is lifted into the air, and the troll announces that he has found food for himself. He starts throwing them into his huge basket, declaring that today has been a very good hunt. Then he grabs another one, saying he won't escape, and throws him into his basket as well. The goblins, they begin to devour the man whose head exploded, as they also need to feed their companions. Soon, they spot a village on the horizon, along with the troll ogres. They begin to smile, saying there will be plenty of food in the fortress, as they continue riding their mounts. Midian says that at first, he thought he was the only one. He was taking things slowly, so he was surprised, but he believes it wasn't a bad tactic, especially since he even recovered all the weapons. Asadin says that it is difficult for someone to understand others without having been in the same position, and that losing an eye has greater consequences than one might realize. Whipped repeatedly. After a while, the young master is already panting, and then he begins to smile with a touch of psychopathy as he comments that it's, imagine. The people who would have been victims of his raids are not people he fears, and he is sure that this is a good opportunity for them too. They will regret it. Ishmael is surprised that he even gave them the opportunity to repent. It's amusing that a herald is giving someone else that chance to purify their soul. They dismount from their steeds, and Asadin says that the conversation is bothering him. Midian asks what he means by that. He says that rumors say that Marquis Cashel is searching for a copy of the Divine King's book. Ishmael comments that Cashel lost the succession battle, and he asks if he thinks she's trying to climb the ranks by using the book. Asadin says it seems quite dangerous, so he will have to remove his mask, since it reveals that he is a herald, and they will need to be careful until they leave Sel's territory. We see the faces of the two completely. They are surprised to realize that their friend Asadin doesn't even have eyes, noticing only a scar on his face. They both just stand there. With his mouth open, he puts on a cloak to further disguise himself. Ismail comments that he doesn't seem to have any difficulty, despite being unable to see, and he asks how that's possible. Asadin replies that he doesn't know either, explaining that he's been able to see without eyes since birth. Miriam runs towards him, and he wonders what she wants, telling her to say what's on her mind. She says she just thinks he probably looked better with that scar. He asks what she means by that, and she replies that, really fascinating how the woman continues to struggle to hold on to her husband, even while being whipped. Walking with a smile on his face, he tells, he was probably very handsome, and then suffered an accident in which he lost his eyes. She thinks it's better to have scars than a pretty face with ugly eyes. Ismail says that she is being very rude, but Asadin comments that she is saying the same things as the person who caused the wound on his face. She is surprised and asks, who was it? He says it was none other than Ariel. We see his face bleeding. Asadin explains that she found it strange that he didn't have what should have been there, and that at least she could imagine that there were once eyes where they should be. But when it healed, Ariel cut his face, saying it would be better that way. Thanks to that, he can pretend that he is blind and hasn't faced any problems when he was alone. Miriam says that just means that they also have to, then pretending to be blind. He replies that it is fine, as they continue walking towards the same fortress where the ogre creature was also seen that night. They arrive to find the guards conducting inspections at the entrance. Ismail says he can see the gates, but the line looks quite long. Asadin comments that it's been a while since he's been here, at the gate of the eastern village. Midian points out that it's also the village where the Imperial Highway begins, making it a good starting point for their journey. Asadin tells him to be quiet, explaining that he is on a solitary pilgrimage and they are just children who happen to join him. Then he notices something, and calls Ismail little dog, asking if it was like this the last time he was here, because the guards are. Sebsi that he should also have fun and enjoy life while he still can. Sebsi, on the other hand, observes the bodies scattered all around, probably conducting a very thorough investigation, even stealing some things and putting them in their pockets. Midian remarks that they are simply stealing, and Ishmael, he replies that it wasn't so bad the last time he was here. Asadin says that he now realizes they are looking for something, and if they are observing so carefully, maybe you have an idea. A man in line asks if he can't see what's going on. Asadin replies no, explaining that these two are on a pilgrimage with him. The man, he replies that it must be quite difficult, and Asadin asks what is happening around here. The man asks if he hasn't heard the rumors that copies of the Divine King's book are circulating. Rumors say that a member of the clan made copies of the book after stealing it, and those copies are appearing all over the place. Parts. All the castle bastards are currently hunting for the book, and it's a complete disaster. Asadin says that means there is more than just the original book, a loser he found. The man asks what he means by that, but Asadin replies that it's nothing. This is not good because the man possesses one of the book's pages. It's going to be annoying to deal with this situation. The man who is being robbed says that he needs the money to feed his family. He mentions that they are looking for the Divine King's book and asks why they are taking his money. The guard punches him in the face, telling him to let go of it, causing the man to fall to the floor. Then he says that a grimoire can take on many shapes and appearances, and who knows if his grimoire is disguised as money. They say that they, feeling a deep sense of frustration. With the arrival of night, we notice that some people no longer have anyone to support them, leaving them hanging and will inspect it closely and return it if it is not the book they are looking for. The man's daughter steps forward, saying that this is robbery, and demanding that they return and begin to insult her, asking if she's really answering back. If she is, it means she needs a beating. Her father hugs her, saying that they are threatening a young girl with violence. They all order him to shut up and punch him in the stomach. She begins to comfort her father, and the guard says that she should educate her daughter better. Then, they ask the next people to come forward and introduce themselves. We see Midian looking very irritated. Ismail asks what they should do, and Midian wonders if they should fight, but Asadin tells them to wait. A man then runs up, whispering something to the guard, which frightens him. Asadin realizes that this is not a good sign, as everyone begins to panic, grabbing whatever they can and running inside. All the others, they ask what's happening, and despite his blindness, he tells them that an ogre has been spotted nearby. Intrigued, they ask what he means by that, and Asadin explains that he has extremely sharp hearing and overheard talk of an ogre, which is why they ended up closing the gates. We see everyone exchanging worried glances. Everyone starts banging on the door, saying they can discuss it, and begging to be let inside. Next, we see a carriage as a man approaches him. We are introduced to another of Cashsel's illegitimate children, named Harry. He asks if the gates have been closed, and they confirm that they have. Amidst this tragedy, the inhabitants knew they had to flee, but escape was not easy, as the Marquis of Cashel considered flight a grave offense and dispatched his soldiers. Inert. Some have fainted, exhausted from dehydration. John, with difficulty, tells his beloved Sophia that she should run away, and admits that he was previously. Harry says that since they've already confirmed there are no copies of the book there, they should just leave with what they've taken. A man runs towards JKP asking what. That's what they need to do now. Jev tells him that they need to repel the ogre and any other monsters that approach the gate, because they have been trained well enough to face them. The man is worried, since they have only been trained for a day, and JKP says that they should at least let in the people who are outside, and that he will command the defense. Following that, JKP states that he's not even a knight, questioning what he is capable of. The man doesn't want to hear that from a knight who is running away, but JKP tells him that he will take care of it, and that is enough. While he rides, the man watches and becomes nervous, since he can feel the ground shaking. Nearby birds also begin to flee, demonstrating that something is approaching. Now, we see one of the aspiring. The bandit in the basket asks if they are going to be eaten, and inquires about their destination. The trolls march towards the village, while above them, a man. He observes the approaching trail of calamity. His only reaction is to stare in astonishment, unaware of what is about to befall everyone present at that location. Not only him, but everyone surrounding Asadin, watched as immense destruction drew near in the distance. We find that the people have decided to depart. They hold torches as they traverse the journey of tears. A woman turns around, holding a lantern, and, wrong. but she shakes her head, tightening her embrace around him even more. In a weak voice, she asks about the Emperor's herald, tells Asadin that the path ahead will be more difficult. She hands Ismail a lantern, asking him to guide his younger sister and his uncle, as he was, an extra flashlight, which he believes will help him, and he thanks her, saying that he will take care of his uncle, so she doesn't have to worry. Meridian laughs as he pats Asadin on the back, remarking that people seem to act more kindly when he pretends to be blind. Returning to the gates, before they leave, we see the man who was speaking with Marquis saying that the knights and mercenaries have fled. However, he reminds everyone that they must protect the village, requesting that those who can fight stay behind to help, and mentions that it is also fine to simply provide support. So, as they defend the village, the others will be able to escape more quickly. The man who had been beaten earlier tells his daughter, Cosette, that he will fight to protect her. She asks, saying that he can barely cut an apple. Asadin reflects on the people who decided to stay behind and fight. Miriam comments that it's unbelievable that the gentlemen whose purpose is to serve the people are abandoning everyone. To her, this is shameful and pathetic. Knowing something, Asadin says that even though they are from the town of Bibis, it seems that instead of protecting others, they believe it is noble to stay and fight. Miriam agrees, although she comments that it would be strange for a girl to sympathize with the inhabitants of Bibis. Asadin says he feels the same way, then he tells them that it is time to separate. With his ghostly aura, will he actually appear while she's holding a coin? Then, she looks towards the horizon, searching for answers. After a while, Sophia faints from the pain, but, beginning to appear, he disappears, leaving only his staff behind. They shout, asking where he went. Back at the fortress, we see everyone. On guard, Cosette's father informs the captain that there are numerous enemies. We learn that, besides goblins, orcs are also accompanying the ogre. The ogre shouts, revealing his name is Goldo, throws his basket full of people to the ground, stating it serves as meat storage, and holds his food for a long time. He suggests that investing in their food market would be beneficial, even though his words are simple, such as strong, big human village. Boldo raises his foot and slams it against the ground, declaring that he will take as many people as possible with him. The captain points out that the ogre is the leader and orders that everyone fire arrows at him. As the bows are released, most of the arrows fail to reach the castle. However, a few do manage to hit. Eno, a small goblin with a staff, smiles from behind the basket, telling Goldo to seize the opportunity and smash down the door with the entire army. The army begins to advance, and the captain shouts a warning to be careful of the invading enemies. Arrows continue to fly, but the goblins use their shields for protection. One of the goblins raised his axe and began striking the door. Goldo grabs a large rock nearby, runs towards the wall, and throws it, causing damage. Even within their own army, the people on the other side of the door are doing their best to keep it standing. The captain begins to panic. Soon, we see someone offering her water to help her recover. She starts coughing, having choked on the water, until she opens her eyes and, shouting that they must attack. Cosette's father raises his bow, ready to act, and hopes that his daughter has gotten far enough away, so that even when they inevitably die, she will still be safe. We still see the little shaman behind the basket preparing another spell as the fire shines on his staff. He realizes that the moment is right and casts the spell directly into the sky, announcing that the wand has responded and that the Divine King's book is present, because that is the only reason for it to activate. The shaman is trampled on the face, falling to the ground. Asadin uses the basket to fly high above Goldo, who is already preparing another rock. Goldo throws it directly towards Site's father and another citizen, and we see the explosion occur. However, Asadin manages to get them out of harm's way in time. He releases the basket, and the captain is surprised to see someone arrive. To help them, Asadin says he will assist in defending the gate, but the captain demands to know his identity. Asadin replies that he is merely a messenger of the passing emperor. They become terrified and ask if he means that he is a member of the Herald clan. Before they can get an answer, he is already prepared with his bow. Still fighting, he leaps from the castle wall and fires 2 swift arrows directly into Goldo's eyes, blinding him. As Goldo screams in pain, he begins punching the ground, yelling that he will kill him, but ends up killing his own allies instead. The figure, surprised, she realizes that Sevi is in front of her, telling her to be quiet, lands on Goldo's head as he continues to swing his arms blindly. He also moves forward, crushing the goblins beneath him. Asadin comments, "That was exactly what he expected." He's pleased that the creature is so stupid, so he grabs more arrows and fires, killing several goblins. The captain wonders if he really is a sanctity assassin, and why he would be helping them, unless he was hired to do so. The basket falls, and when Asadin, he looks at her and sees that one of the amateur bandits from earlier is still alive. The man crawls away from her, tears streaming down his face, completely terrified by what he sees before him. It's the shaman everyone thought was dead, slowly transforming. He speaks about the book of the divine king, while drooling, and his arm begins to grow in a grotesque and deformed way. The shaman declares that he will be the king of prey and transforms into some kind of monster. With terrifying tentacles and teeth, he continues chanting that he will be the king of prey as he appears ready to devour someone. Then, he is beheaded, and we see only pieces of the tentacle monster scattered on the ground. Asadin comments that this will be a problem as the monster starts to expand and, shoot, we see one of the monster's tentacles begin to launch itself forward, heading towards Goldo. Then, Goldo senses it as well, and jumps, his head, leaving Goldo alone to be devoured as the monster begins to tear him apart. Goldo screams in pain, saying that it hurts as he desperately tries to. He asks if she can eat, holding a spoonful of food, as he begins to take care of her so she can regain her health. We discover that he has used his cloak as crawl away. He says he likes to eat, but he doesn't like being eaten, and we watch as the monster swallows him whole, like a snake. Asadin lands on the ground, watching the monster as it slowly begins to transform into a different form, continuing to morph into something else. Further, all the citizens look terrified, and Asadin recognizes him as Court, the king of the prey. The monster appears swollen, and the shaman from before appears in front of him, holding his staff. He begins to laugh and smile as the staff lights up once more, shooting a beam of light and guiding it toward the page. Suddenly, he shoots at Asadin, who wonders if he is looking for the page. The shaman says that Yegas's servants must hand over the book to him, and if they do, he will kill them quickly and painlessly. Before he can finish the sentence, an arrow flies toward him, nearly finishing the job itself. We see that Asadin, he's not even giving her a chance to deliver a monologue. Kurt starts to get irritated by this, and when Asadin turns around, he notices that he's out of arrows, but he knows he's heading behind the page. Kurt then attacks Asadin with one of his tentacles, which Asadin deflects, wondering why. They are searching for copies of the Divine King's book. Anyway, he keeps dodging their attacks, but of course, the allies aren't safe either, as they are being caught in the crossfire. One of them even gets drenched in a shower of purple liquid that starts to burn him. Kurt yells, calling him insolent. A makeshift blanket, he even stood guard while Sophia slept. Noticing the dawn, Sebek realizes it is time to leave, and he is not very happy about it, while launching even more tentacles. As Asadin flees from him, he realizes where he's running. It's towards a sword, and it's blocking his path. Asadin grabs the sword, realizing it needs to fight, turns around and raises it to battle the tentacles. Of course, he's not just skilled with a bow and arrows, as he demonstrated earlier, but he's also very skilled with a sword, as he begins to send the creature's claws flying through the air, one after another. Advancing, he says that those holds are too large for his body as they fall to the ground. He continues, saying that prey with shallow roots are weak. Cork tells him to shut up, reminding him that he is the king of the prey, after all, sending even more, thinking that quantity is better than quality. Asadin laughs, saying that no, he is not, and that he is just a useless relative created by the king of the prey. This time, he not only cuts the holds of the Mastivus tentacle, completely cutting it in half. The sword corrodes from the purple liquid, and he throws it away, saying he knew it. It wouldn't last long. Seeing that he no longer has a weapon, Kurt seizes the opportunity to attack even more fiercely. Asadin secretly says he is working at a loss, doing this without even receiving any gold coins. The villagers finally decide it's time to help him, and we see them launch a rain of arrows forward. This starts to push Kurt back, away from Asadin, giving him time. The captain says they have to help, no matter what happens. He wakes Sophia and explains that he arrived there unseen, but he needs to leave before he is discovered, because he will be punished if his presence is known. Happens. They still say that helping the Herald clan seems a little strange, and if the king's church hears about this, they will accuse and execute them. He says they were abandoned by the very people who left them, and questioning why they should fear punishment from those who abandoned them, they ultimately realize he is right. And Cosette's father draws his bow, declaring he doesn't want to die here, As he releases the first arrow, he readies another, stating that they are only attacking monsters, and after they kill them, they can go after the Herald clan member, or whatever. Everyone starts agreeing with him, saying that this is the perfect plan, and that's why they decided to help them in the first place. While Court is being struck by arrows, Asadin comments that they should have given him the arrows from the start. He stretches, saying he thinks it's time to begin, grabs one of the corpses from the ground, and throws it forward, causing it to stord, exploding upon landing and laughing, stating that this should be sufficient. He picks up another and begins rapidly firing the prey, one after another. It turns out that this was his plan when he severed the dams. Kurt begins to grow furious, demanding to know how he dares. Asadin asks him why he's so angry, saying that he's simply returning his prey. Kurt screams, declaring that he will become an even larger being than he is now, as Asadin lifts a giant prey and throws it forward, announcing that he will reap. Kurt realizes that he is an exterminator of. As he speaks, he makes a pained expression and apologizes for Sophia's engagement, saying that there is no need for her to hold on to it anymore. We see that he has holiness. We see the arrow pierce directly through Kurt's skull. This is brutal. Then he raises another, stating that his job is to eliminate things like that. As the spear severs Kurt's head, which bounces on the ground, we see that in his final moments, he was consumed by rage. The monster then begins to disintegrate, falling to pieces. Asadin declares that he's finished and goes to retrieve the staff, but he hears the captain shout, calling him a heathen for no reason. Soul. When he turns around, he sees everyone pointing their arrows at him. Asadin remarks that this is quite rude and that they might make a mistake if they fire. The captain demands to know what he's planning and why he helped them with the monsters. The villagers begin to claim that he probably brought them there in the first place. They say that no matter how they look at it, it's suspicious that the monsters only appeared when he did, and that it's all his fault from the very beginning. Asadin thinks to himself about how should he respond to this ridiculous situation. He just stands there while they continue to criticize me, which must be the reason they're even here. But of course, even he doesn't know the answer. He knows why the monster appeared. As everyone is aware, it was simply fulfilling its duties according to the gold coins, and someone used one to place an order for it. They're shocked and ask who wished upon the gold coin demon. They begin to panic, wondering who it could have been, and saying that they know that. They are fighting, but wishing harm upon the Herald clan is going too far. One of the men asks if that person is currently present, and he replies that he isn't. He has improvised a support with a piece of wood to hold the man up, but we don't know if John is still alive. Sophia's eyes reflect pure terror as obligated to tell them that, nor does he have the authority to do so. Everyone begins to panic, and he asks if he's free to leave now, or if they intend to fight him. The King's Church. Despite being attacked and abandoned by the noble bastard clan, one of the citizens tells him to stop speaking ill of their faith. And Asadin laughs, saying that of course they are loyal citizens. As he leaves, we see the wannabe AB Bandito still alive, asking if it's finally over. He looks up only to see Asadin and is terrified that he survived. Asadin tells him to be kind, because he was given a second chance in life. He starts to cry. I really hope he has good character development. With that said, he leaves and jumps from the ground, running towards the wall of the castle as they point their bows at him. The captain shouts, telling them not to attack him. Asadin appears, taking a handful of arrows from his giant quiver. He says he'll only take a few, asking if everything is all right. The captain thanks him, and Asadin calls him a fool, saying that if he had known him properly, he definitely would have been executed, but we see him smiling as he returns down the path where everyone was walking. The scene is empty, as Asadin runs through the forest with the owl right behind him. The owl asks him why he lied to them, and he replies that if he had told the truth, they would live in fear for having gotten involved with him. The owl asks if he doesn't resent them, because they treated him strangely even, to punish anyone attempting to escape with execution. One of the soldiers approached and slit a man's throat, while the rest, she drops the piece of wood, even surprising Sebek, a great knight. He watches her struggling to support her husband in the midst of her desperation. After he had saved them, he says that humans are weak, but they were still kind to him when he pretended to be blind, so they deserve to be praised. However, he's quite tired because he had to run all the way there, and to make matters worse, he didn't even receive a gold coin for it. Then he sees, somewhat ahead, and notices that it's none other than Midian and Ismail, who are taking advantage of the fact that he also hunted a Godkin. Court comments on killing a court. Seems intense, but he replies that he actually wasn't that strong. Ismail begins to reflect on the situation, saying that he wasted his energy and he wasn't even paid for it. Asadin says that Midian told him that it's a beautiful thing to help and protect people, and that life isn't fun without the right perspective. Midian laughs, saying that Ismail was never a fun person and wonders why he is being beaten. Asadin says that saying they are alone implies that the other evacuees abandoned them. She explains that the others initially tried to stop them, but they said they would return. To help them fight the weaker monsters, they even gave them a torch so they wouldn't get lost in the dark, which was a kind gesture. But they only did it because they didn't know she was Aragaza. Miriam starts to say it was only because she's pretty, and Asadin laughs, saying certainly, it was because she was a child, and not because they considered her pretty. She points out that she is 13, and mentions a queen of the north who is already married at that age. Asadin. He asks for her name, promising to inform the Herald clan so they can be forgiven. When the name is mentioned, she is slightly irritated and looks over. He then asks if they recognize the staff as he shows it to them. Midian says it looks like a magic wand. Knowing this, he reveals that it's what Kurt possessed. He says he'll have to concentrate a lot for that, but right now he doesn't have enough energy. Then she notices something and asks if he's regarding her, recognizing her as a subordinate. He replies that, of course, he can ask a relative for a favor. Miriam says that she also wants him to do her a favor, and he replies that he can inspect her tomorrow. Then he jumps from the ground up into a tree. As she asks, "Where are you going, Asadin?" He says that he needs to hurry and that she should follow him. She asks why they are in such a hurry, and we see the evacuees again. The woman who was kind to them earlier sees him and asks when he arrived, saying that the children were looking for him. He says that he got a little lost, but they are smart kids, so they will catch up soon. More importantly, he heard Victoria's screams coming from the town. The aunt asks what he means, and he replies that, as they know, he has exceptionally good hearing, and that everything will probably be all right if they return to the town. For the time being, he asks if she can reach them from their current location using something like lantern signals. The aunt, she considers it, and then one of the evacuees shouts that they see something, lanterns near the gate, now lit, and the vigilante committee. He must have succeeded. Everyone begins to feel relieved and happy, and Asadin tells her that she should send a small group of people to investigate. When she turns, he asks if she is referring to the exterminators of holiness. He claims they are soulless heretics, and asks if she was the one who hired them. Sophia nods affirmatively. Turning around to thank him, she realizes that he has completely disappeared, and she wonders where he went. Of course, he only wanted to help them so they wouldn't be separated from their loved ones. However, he was too lazy to do anything about it, and if he were to lie down, he would surely faint. Then, he sees smoke in the mountains and wonders what it could be. He decides to investigate, and soon stops, observing a bonfire with soldiers. These are the same men who fled the city. They are saying that a drought and the presence of an ogre are strange occurrences to happen again in this territory, and that the area is already lost. They just need to do a good job and get out of there. Asadin realizes that the bastard son must also be there, inside the only tent with lights on. He sees some valuables in the boxes and laments that he is out of money. The owl responds that he hit the jackpot because she is also ready for him to take everything. Asadin comments that traveling requires a lot of money, making it a true blessing. Wow, everyone enjoyed the story. I absolutely loved it. If you want to see the next part, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. See you in the next story, everyone. Sebsi comments that he doesn't know if those people really exist. Even the young master had 20 well-armed soldiers under his command. Furthermore, he himself couldn't defeat him alone, not to mention that Clay also has blue blood in his veins. He still emphasizes that Sophia must be aware of the incredible strength of divine blood, especially the blood of the Yegas. Sophia responds by stating that even though she is a mage, the Herald clan is capable of defeating him since they also possess magical abilities. She explains that they are called exterminators of sanctity because they earned that title. After murdering kings who possessed divine blood, Sebsi shakes his head and comments that Sophia is clearly not in a stable mental state, which he finds unbelievable. After enduring so much trauma, he finally introduces himself with a formal gesture, revealing that his name is Sebsi and that he is a holy knight of the Church of Sin. However, he does not reveal her name, intending for her to beg the exterminators of sanctity for her life. She listens to what he says, even though she is on the verge of. The villagers begin to run in panic. Among them, a little boy tries to escape, but stumbles. Turning around, his eyes filled death, and he emphasizes that even if they arrive, he will fight with all his strength. Before departing, He says that he will return in the evening to check on her, while he, Aleha Sophia, shows anguish, but tries to stay strong by telling herself that she only needs to hold out for 2 more days, as she gazes at the clan symbol. Herald on the ground reinforces that 2 days will be enough. The narrative takes us back to a time before the drought, to an estate where Sophia and John were conversing. John hands something to Sophia. It looked like a coin. Curious, she wonders what it was. John asks her if she has heard of the Herald clan, to which Sophia answers affirmatively. He explains that her father used to tell her stories about them when she was younger. According to her father, all the members of the Herald clan were soulless. John confirms this information and explains that the gold coin Sophia is holding is known as the Emperor's Gold, capable of to summon those without a soul. However, he warns her about the danger, because if anyone from the king's church were to see her with that object, the inquisitors, heretics, would execute her. John then kisses her on the cheek, leaving Sophia extremely flustered. With a slight smile, she asks him why he would give her something so dangerous as a gift. He replies that it is only for serious emergencies, in case something were to happen to them. John explains that if she draws, quote, a triangle on the ground and places the coin in the center, a herald will come to help her, although he hopes it will never be necessary. Sophia understands in terror, the boy begs for help as the soldier raises his sword in the air, aiming towards the boy's eye. Tragically, no one can save him, and he is executed right there. Meaning of this as she looks at the triangle drawn on the ground, repeating to herself that she only needs to endure 2 days. The body of her husband begins to attract flies, but even so, Ella remains determined. Another day goes by, and Sophia insists that just 1 more day will be enough. She looks at the sun and he insists that if he can hold on, everything will be all right, even though his body is on the verge of collapse. With his vision blurring, he collapses to the ground, a victim of dehydration. Sophia dies, but she maintained her determination until the very end. The story then returns to an outpost where soldiers are cleaning up after the massacre in the village. We see him there, also looking at the sun, and remarking that the day is exceptionally hot. Clay approaches and asks why Sebek isn't, smiling, saying that he should be having a lot of fun with all of this. Sebek replies that if they keep killing the citizens, they will have no one from whom to collect taxes. Clay responds that the dissatisfied have already left, so there won't be much to collect. Anyway, since the villagers are robbing each other, Sebek, with clenched fists, argues that the Marquis' territory has fertile soil, and the people could be evacuated, thus avoiding so much suffering. Clay states that suffering is necessary because the villagers are ungrateful, and furthermore, if they don't suffer, they will ruin agriculture and go, like they tried to do before. Sebek seems to be trying to explain that farming won't be affected since it depends on individual ability, but Clay interrupts him. The one who led this raid was the Marquis' son, a powerful mage who claims to have the blood of divine kings running through his veins. With an arc in Olda, abruptly, Clay declares that agriculture actually depends on the soil, the climate, and the king's light, and emphasizes that it seems Exeger M learned this. Laughing sarcastically, Clay from the church provokes Seb, who shows irritation but remains silent as Clay approaches, scrutinizing him closely. Clay, he states that the drought they are experiencing is a punishment for the king's infidelity to the church, a point clearly stated in their doctrine. Seb calmly replies, arguing that such an interpretation is quite a stretch. Clay retorts that if someone made the soil fertile and another person alleviated the drought, they should punish the sinners and those who attempted to flee and ruin their lands, while those who helped enrich the soil deserve to be rewarded with land. He does it to save the people, and if Seb wishes to defy his orders and save the villagers, he will have to do his absolute best. Clay begins to walk away, while Sebsi stands silently without a word. The story then shifts back to some slums in the border territory where most, quote, citizens have died from dehydration. Sebsi approaches the hill where he left Sophia, and as he looks, his eyes are filled with pain. Looking up, he sees her body on the ground and clenches his fist in anger, saying that in the end, she couldn't endure it. He believes that even if the Gerals were to arrive now, it would be useless, since most of the villagers have already died. As he observes Safa's corpse, he begins to sense a sinister presence, and, expression of irritation, he declares that even beasts should show gratitude, questioning whether the citizens understand why they are still. Immediately, someone appears behind him with a sword pointed at the back of his neck. The person warns him that they will strike him down if he moves, telling Sebski not to move. Geir Sebek, noticing the individual's ghostly aura, deduces that he must be a herald. The being asks if the man is a knight or if he belongs to the Burvet. Rescue team, Sebsi confirms, stating that he was a holy knight. The man asks, as a precaution, whether he has any contracts. It would be interesting if AD Knight of the King's Church were to apply for a contract. That would make it quite an interesting place. Sebek, irritated, asks if the man is mocking him. The man reflects for a moment, saying that the girl was his contractor and that she was already dead, which is why he received a free gold coin. He asks what happened there. Sebsky responds that if the man sheathes his sword and walks away, he will tell the truth in exchange for his honor. The man smiles and nods. Head used his ghostly aura to greatly increase the distance between them. Sebek, surprised by the speed of the movement, wonders if the man is really a ghost. The man sheathes his sword and remarks that it seems Sebek believes he would have been defeated if he hadn't ambushed him, but that's all right, because if Sebek is a holy knight, at least he possesses courage. Sebek asks the man if he is a magician, but the other replies that everyone in the Herald clan is, except for him. Confused, the swordsman questions whether what the man did earlier wasn't magic. The man then explains that,